Hi everybody and welcome. My name's Julie Mann. I am a professional network marketer. I'm also an actor and I'm an EFT practitioner. And today I'm joined by the lovely Ollie Martin, who is the founder of Get Curious. Hi Ollie.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm good, great to see you.
Good, and you?
So before we start talking about Get Curious, I want to know a little bit about your background.
Okay.
I happen to know that up until I think about 6 years ago, you were working for the Sussex Police.
That's right.
So I'm really curious to know, what made you join the police force in the first place, and also, what it was like being a police constable, because I've got absolutely no idea.
Okay, good questions. What made me join the police? So I remember from very early age, so Mum tells me when I was like 2 or 3 years old, I used to jump around in those little plastic cars with the blue light on top and drive around going Nina, Nina a lot. I know that for a fact. I don't know if that's much different to many lads, boys. I've got a 4-year-old now and a 9-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl, 5-year-old boy, and then a 9-year-old boy, and they've all done similar. So whether it's a family trait, I don't know. But and then I went through university, went travelling an awful lot, and I think the combined effort of travelling for a long time and then being a student for quite a while, doing my degree, I then started the masters, and then I suddenly realised I'm a bit bored of being a bit skint, if I'm perfectly honest, of all those years of being without money. And I wanted to join a career. And actually the police force was something I would always wanted to do, because I didn't understand or realise it at the time, but actually I've got this sort of burning desire to be helpful and be useful. So I think that's probably a prime driver, although I didn't really realise it at the time. That was a driver to be in that sort of format. So I joined the police in 2004, Sussex Police. I was in for 10 years and it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. It had its challenges, as you'd expect, almost on a daily basis, but then also towards the end of my career, I had some other different sort of mental, physical challenges as well that I had to sort of try and cope with. It was incredibly varied, incredibly enlightening to see how different people live and how different people challenge and have challenges, but incredibly fulfilling too, I think.
Can you tell us more about the challenges that you mentioned and how you overcame them?
So for my personal challenges.
Any challenges you like, Ollie.
Yeah. So if I look at being a policeman and dealing with other people's challenges, which you do daily, I think there's an awful amount of pressure on you to do that, because that's your job. And you turn up in uniform or non-uniform, like I was, both. And as soon as you walk into the room and the environment, you are there to solve the problem, aren't you? You're there to solve the challenge that everyone's faced with, whatever that is at the time. So you're very much on a pedestal in that environment, not ultimately always respected, but you're on the pedestal to solve the problem, which is a challenge in itself. It makes you think on your feet a lot. It makes you be quite resourceful, quite resilient, quite robust, good decision making. But it also, I think, was a detriment effect to my personal challenges, because I had my own things going on, when I was outside the police, as every other human being does, and they don't go away. So when you're there, your job is to answer and provide solutions to everyone else's challenges, that just mounts on top of your own, so it becomes quite, I think people forget that. I think people forget that those guys, men and ladies, that turn up to a job every day in a uniform, whether it's NHS or any other services, they've got their own challenges going on as well, and I think we overlook that quite a bit. So I'm really keen for people to sort of not resonate, but understand that more, be more respectful of that in today's world. But also how I then took my own personal challenges towards the end of the 10 years, the things I'm talking about, dealing with other people's issues, and provided quite a bit of stress for me. And I was ultimately, towards the end, I was in a job where I wasn't allowed to talk about what we did every day because it was fairly secure. So that prevented me from talking a lot because I wasn't meant to talk, you know, but that wasn't, it's just installed in you. You don't disclose what you've been dealing with on a daily basis. So I didn't disclose when I came home to talk to my wife or my family or my friends because I wasn't allowed to, I wasn't meant to, you know, and I totally respect that. But what it also meant was my health deteriorated because I also then took the same approach to talk about my own problems. I didn't talk about anything those with anyone. So ultimately, Julie, I ended up having some of the incidents I dealt with, and the police came back to bite me a little bit and caused me to be in quite a bad spot for the particularly last 2 years in the police. But that's not a criticism of the police. I've got to add that it's not a criticism of anyone. Just that I need to learn to deal with my own challenges.
So presumably you just internalized all the stuff and tried to figure it out yourself. But
yes.
Actually we can't figure it out ourselves, can we?
No, absolutely. And also, I don't think you necessarily know how to. You don't necessarily know how to describe how you're feeling, especially as a bloke. I think we struggle with that. So you don't really know how to want to process it, understand how you're feeling, and then to actually communicate that is quite a big task, I think. Yeah. So in short, I ended up, there's a particular incident I dealt with it where we were unable to save the life of a young girl in a traffic crash. And although at the time I knew that was a very significant event, obviously, I didn't have my own children. But then when I started to have my own children, that really sort of, that seed, if you like, in the back of my mind came through quite a lot. And I really struggled with it, but I wasn't communicating that with anyone. So my own mental health deteriorated quite rapidly until I sought help, which was because I had to at the end. I was at a breaking point. I wasn't too fussed if I saw tomorrow or whatever else. So yeah, I had to seek some help for that. But then I learned that as soon as I started talking about it, it helped, you know, because it wasn't rational for me to think everything was fine. You know, that was a very challenging time for everybody. But I had to understand it also was for me. So I had to talk about it more. So I did, and it helped an awful lot from professionals and non-professionals.
Yeah, and I guess what you were saying earlier on about you weren't always respected. If all that was going on for you and sometimes you weren't respected, that must have been a very challenging.
Yeah, I think so, Judy. You know, yeah, so I suppose it manifests a little bit. You know, when you go into work, I remember I just bought a new property as well, and my first home, and there was some problems going on with that. It's just there's lots of stuff building under, you know, before even my own normal life, before going into work. So then, yeah, ultimately not to then to want to trying to help other people on top of your own problems, and then not really wanting to listen or being respectful of the help you're trying to give can be quite difficult because you're still going to do it. Well, they do. Sometimes you think, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to leave you to it and walk off, but you can't. So it can be quite a challenge, and you don't want to, but you know, sometimes it can be difficult if that respect's not coming back. You think, well,
yeah, and I guess as well, it must have been an awful strain on your relationship too.
Yeah, honestly, Julie, in that respect, myself and my wife are incredibly close. That was never an issue, to be honest. I think we've always been really strong, and my wife didn't really get any much insight because I wasn't telling her. It was all very much hidden away, you know. So on the front, probably seemed okay. But actually deep down I was in bits, and but ultimately I think I said to my wife, now I've put on like 2 or 3 stone in weight. You know, I'm really not happy. I lost my friendship bases, and then at the point where this incident kept on reoccurring for me, then I said to my wife, oh, this is happening and I'm not particularly comfortable with it. She asked why or how long has it been going on for. I said a couple of years. She said, right, we need to get this addressed. So I went to see the GP. But our relationship's always been really solid, really, really, really solid. And what I love about my wife is she doesn't necessarily prod for answers all the time, which I think some people can, and that ultimately I think that pushes, especially men, it pushes us backwards to say, actually, if you keep pushing, I'm not going to tell you anything. But,
I mean, obviously you are generalizing about men, but I guess that's your experience of men. So
yeah, of course I am. Yeah.
So is the incident that happened what decided you then to leave the police force?
No, it wasn't. It was no, it wasn't at all. I was a new dad. I was married. We wanted to have more children. At the time, the police promotions were frozen. I think our pension contribution was going up. So actually what I was taking home was going down. I wasn't getting the opportunity to grow sort of professionally that I wanted to do. I felt like I should be doing as a new dad and a husband, to be the big breadwinner. That just wasn't happening. I felt frustrated by that. So I started looking how to explore other opportunities. So ultimately, after 2 years of trying, I did leave the police. So I went down another career path, which, I immediately experienced a pay increase, some work flexibility, my work-life balance was better. But ultimately, I was still thinking, I'm still not something not quite right. I'm not as happy as what I used to be in terms of my fitness and my physical state and my mental state. So this is where Get Curious came from. I just ultimately decided, well, let's use all those policing skills I used to have, that I was being trained, being inquisitive about everyone else under the sun, and actually just get inquisitive about Ollie Martin again and sort of understand what makes the sort of fire light in his belly every day. So that's what I did. I just got curious about myself, really.
I think that's actually my favourite word, is curious. Being curious about life and the world is I think what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
So you obviously, although you experienced a pay rise and things look different when you weren't in uniform, I imagine that transition wasn't easy, going from the kind of environment that you've been in, even though it was preferable doing something else.
Yeah.
I imagine that was that an easy transition for you?
Again, in hindsight, no, it wasn't actually. I look back at some of my behaviours and I think, people must have thought they were Wally, to be honest. You come from this really rigid, not profession. I would say rigid is not the right word, but you have to work within certain boundaries, you all do.
Law.
That's the law. And so in some ways, it's so you when you go into a new environment, you're expecting that similar approach to everything, which is beneficial in some respect. Don't get wrong. Sometimes we can sit on the fence a bit too long, can't we? We do need someone to say, no, this is what we're doing. But maybe I was a bit too much, this is what we're doing at the start. Perhaps I wasn't as curious as I could have been to other people's opinions, but not opinions, but ideas. But that was just part of the transition. That's just part of change.
Yeah. So you were working for the pensions regulator when you set up Get Curious, weren't you? So how was that balancing those two things? And
starting absolutely fine. Yeah, absolutely fine, Julie. Get Curious has always been like a hobby or fulfillment, if you like, for me, and it still is now in that respect. I'm still at that same workplace. They're fantastic. They're really, really good. And the beauty about Get Curious is, and this is the whole point, it's there to make me happy. So I do it when I can do it. It's not an over extra demand on my time. It's all the things I love. It reminds me each day to do what I want to be doing, to keep my fulfillment, to keep me happy, and it actually engages my creative side, which is ultimately makes me a better bloke. So I think as a result, I benefit, obviously, my wife, my family benefit, my workplace will benefit from that, because I call it self-regulating, I'm managing my time, I'm being able to see around the corner, ultimately, about what's coming.
I love that. And I think it is so important and so often overlooked, the fact that it's really important that we're doing something that we love, that we are fulfilled. I think that there are a lot of people who are kind of just going through the 9 to 5, going through the motions, that perhaps never actually, have a kind of awakening and go, do you know what? I hate what I do and I'm going to do something about it. So that's so amazing that you did. So I've got a testimonial here from somebody that says The quality that makes Ollie stand out is his ownership over his own personal challenges and his willingness to face those demons head on. So you know what I'm going to ask you? What demons have you had to face?
Well, taking accountability and ownership, I think, is probably one of the biggest things I have.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, and I think the demons part is dealing with the instances that have happened before in the police. And I don't know if that's demon's the right word, but it's not. It's a challenge, isn't it? That was something that I was really struggling to face up to, in respect of I needed to address it. Can
you talk about something specific, Ollie, just so that we can get more of an idea? Is that one thing that you've
Yeah, so the particular, the car incident I'm talking about with the young girl, that was something that was a particular challenge for me, and I didn't know how to cope with it. I felt particularly guilty that I wasn't able to save her life. I started having my own children, and it was a very reoccurring experience for me, and that was incredibly difficult for me personally. And then I didn't know how to deal with that until I started talking about it. And actually, it's still, every year at the anniversary, it's still very difficult for me. So I try to address that in different ways now. So I try to make something positive from that event. So that's probably, that's relation to that and how I'm sort of tackling that head on, trying to change the mindset of that for me, to try and make it something positive and a bit of a legacy, really, for that young girl. So that's one aspect. And on the ownership and accountability side, it's easy to say no, isn't it? It's easy to take the sort of easy path, the simple route in life, I think. May not necessarily be the one that makes you happy, but it's the easiest one to do. So I think, which I've done probably a lot during my university days and younger days, I always took the easy route. I've got older, I've started to realise, well, if I want to succeed in the dreams that I've got, then there's nothing lands on your plate. You've got to work for it, and you've got to be focused, and you've got to have your own accountability. No one else knows what your dreams are, do they? No one else knows what's going on there, so they can't help you. So what I do now is I talk quite openly about what my ideas are, what I want to do, because that, as soon as I say out loud, other people hear it. So then I know that at some point they might ask me, so have you done that then? Or how's that going? So it just holds me accountable in my own little way.
I think accountability it's what makes everything work, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you've got to. I've got to. You have to prioritise yourself. You have to be accountable for your own health, your physical health. No one else is going to make you get up and go for a run. You've got to do it. You've got to be disciplined, and we do work really hard at that with my wife as well. So I think actually part of that is creating a community around you that's going to be positive, and truly sort of celebrate any successes you have, because that helps with that confidence building and keeping that accountability.
So important, isn't it? And what you're saying about community, when it comes to happiness, apparently, community is right up there. We all want to be part of a tribe, don't we, that we can resonate with, really. So some people watching might not know what Get Curious is. So in a nutshell, how would you describe it?
So we're a not-for-profit organisation, and we provide this space, knowledge and tools for men to make a positive change in their lives. So we provide 2 fortnightly talk groups, free peer support groups for men on Zoom at the moment. So the guys can tune in. We're a completely non-judgmental space for guys to come in, and we have a natter. We talk about sort of daily challenges, life challenges. So we've got one group for the police force, so any men in the police or recently retired. And we've got a group for those guys not in the police. And if we come online, so it's free, no obligation to do anything or commitment to keep attending. it's just a space there for guys to talk and share their experiences, and hopefully that passes on knowledge to others how to deal with particular instances, and encourage blokes to be a bit more vulnerable. Because ultimately, every time I've shown any kind of vulnerability, I've got a huge sense of esteem and confidence afterwards that I'm clear on my identity. But also, we also set these peer support groups up for industry and for businesses as well, particularly important at the moment because everyone's working from home, or majority of us are. We've lost our other communities, if that was at the gym or at the church or at the community hall, or wherever that is, we can't mix. So our immediate community really is the workplace. That's the people we're seeing nearly every day. So I'm helping organisations and businesses set up their own peer support groups so they can encourage a better community at work, to look out for each other and have conversation other than work. And we run escapes. So we take men away on various treks and etc. And we've got a woodland near Lewes that we can access for weekends, camping, etc. So back to basics, a bit of mindfulness, doing some normal, simple tasks just to concentrate the mind on anything else other than the normal distractions in life today. Long example.
Yeah. And what kind of reactions have you had from the men that are part of the peer groups and the?
Yeah, really good. I mean, I think we did a survey recently, and a high percentage, I can't remember the exact figure on top of my head, probably should, but a high percentage of the guys had come back saying, I think it's about 80 or 90% saying they've felt an improved mental, physical fitness from attending the groups. 70% have said that improved physical fitness, despite the fact we don't actually meet up and see each other, because we can't, so that's a really interesting fact for me. The guys, even though we're sitting down talking, they're getting motivated to go out and do exercise and get physically fit, which is brilliant. And it's really close to me. And also, what I do know is 100% of the guys have said that they would encourage other men to be part of peer support groups. They've encouraged the peer support groups to be introduced into the workplace, so that's why we're doing it. And also 100% of them also said, as a result, they've been naturally in their normal communities now, they're encouraging other men to sort of talk a bit more openly and digging a bit deeper to encourage them to open up, which is fantastic.
So fantastic. I'm all for that. So if there are men watching who maybe are feeling unhappy, they can't quite put their finger on what it is, but they haven't been taught to communicate in a way that's effective, what might you say to them?
I would say that ultimately vulnerability, they need to be able to show some vulnerability. And when I mean that, it just means just taking time to express themselves a bit clearer, a bit more, take some confidence in doing that, because people will listen and they'll be ultimately shocked at people's response, I think. People want to hear, and they won't be incredibly disappointed or make a judgment on what you tell them, as long as it's with the people close to you. But also, I'd say as a practical thing to do, if they didn't want to speak at the moment, would be to grab a journal. And this is what I've talked to the guys quite a bit about, is a couple of times a day for at least 2 weeks, is perhaps set an alarm on your phone just to remind you, and just take 10-15 minutes at that moment to think, how am I feeling? Who have I been speaking to? What have I been eating? What was my sleep last night? What was the drive like today? Or just really get inquisitive. I call it the 5WH, about that feeling there and then. So the what, the who, the why, the when, where, and how. And just get really inquisitive about and curious about how you feel at that moment, and then start jotting down your answers. So what are the triggers that put you in that good spot, or if you're not in a good spot, what are those triggers too? And do that for a couple of weeks, and then eventually have a catalogue of these instances that come around that you start to understand. Then actually, this is why I feel like that. This is why this puts me in this particular mood. And once you understand that, because it's hard to do it in today's world, we're moving such a pace that we don't really ever look backwards or stop in the present. So once you understand those triggers, that catalogue, then you can start to redesign my life around these triggers You know, I know you can't avoid everything in life, but you can certainly plan for them. That's what I mean when I say sort of seeing around the bend, you know, seeing around the corner. So, and then once you've got that catalogue, you start redesigning your life. So introducing all the things that make you happy and planning for things that you can't avoid or you can prepare for that perhaps don't make you so happy, but you still have to live through.
Wow.
And that's what I would suggest to do. It helps me all the time. I do it regularly to the point now where I always talk about this, particularly this cap I've got that if I put it on back to front for some reason, it just makes me really happy. It makes you smile immediately. I love it. So, you know, it's just understanding these little things in life. Don't overlook them. And there's obviously big ticket items as well, but family and relationships. But there's also very small things you can look at that will make a significant difference in life, but we don't take time to be present and understand them.
That is so brilliant, because that's such a simple thing that someone can do, but incredibly powerful. And you know what you're saying about the alarm is going back to that accountability, isn't it? Once the alarm goes off, you're accountable to the alarm to fill in the.
Absolutely.
But yeah, fantastic. So how might someone find out more about what you do, Ollie?
So find me on LinkedIn, Ollie Martin, or Get Curious CIC. That's also on LinkedIn, or on Facebook. You can search up Get Curious, and the 2 talk groups that we run are the peer support groups is hashtag Get Curious Talk or hashtag Get Curious 999 for the emergency service guys. And you can join that as a closed group, and then in there we'll publish any meeting dates that we have, etc.
Brilliant. And any words of wisdom before we close?
Find out what makes you happy and keep doing it.
Yay! Ollie, thank you so much.
No problem at all. Thank you.